Hello and welcome to Midnight Readings. I'm back! Sorry for losing my voice there for a while, but can't stay healthy all the time. So let's read the story that I was planning to read a few weeks ago. It is called Pegasus, written by Grand Moff Pony. Hope you all enjoy!
Are you 22A?
I looked up from the mess of headphones and music player cables in my lap. Yep, guilty as charged.
Ah, I found it. 22B for me. Excuse me for just 1 sec.
His voice faded into assorted grunts and groans as he hefted what was probably an oversized carry-on into the overhead bin, followed quickly by his dark blue jacket and huge golf umbrella. Definitely not a local if he has an umbrella.
Sorry, almost there.
His voice was medium tone, not too nasally, but not too deep either. At least it'd be tolerable if it turned out that he was a gabber. No worries here, I replied. I half watched as he slid a smaller bag under the seat in front and slid into the road to take a seat. I was immediately hit with a faint smell of cologne. Oh, jeez. I framed a small stretch and tested it out with my nose. Not the best around, but it could be worse. While he got settled and fished out around for his seatbelt, I stole a glance out the window. People and trucks were everywhere out there. Food, baggage, fuel, and a bunch of others I still couldn't really identify. Funny how small they looked from here. My eyes followed another trail of bags as they were thrown onto the belt. I followed them as far as I could until they disappeared into the belly of the beast. And people think they have it bad up here in Coach. At least they keep the light on for us. The bags don't even get that.
Pardon my reach, miss.
Huh? I turned and saw a phone and charger in his hand. Oh yeah, sure. I shifted a bit and gave him extra room so he could plug in. He seemed like a nice enough guy so far. Pretty easy on the eyes too. Young, probably fresh out of college or something. Light grey skin, dark hair, blue eyes. Yeah, not bad at all. Not that I was looking for, of course.
Thanks. Almost ran out of juice there.
He added smile and a nod, which I returned. Understood. Believe me, 3 hours gets a lot longer when you don't have anything to get to read or play around with. We both laughed at that.
True indeed.
He replied through a chuckle.
On the other hand, it'd give you plenty of time to think.
There is that, I guess. I absently tugged at one of the knots in my cables that still refused to budge. But besides, by the time I fix this mess, we'll probably be there already. He generously offered to help with the cables, but I waved him off. I knew I would get it eventually, and I really wasn't sure I was in a mood to listen to music anyway. He just smiled and nodded, then slid his phone out of the seat back pocket and began tapping on it. Thinking. That word rattled around in my head. I've never been one to spend a lot of time thinking about anything. Kind of a Dash family trait, really. And probably a big reason why I barely got a C in third-year chemistry. But in the last few weeks, I'd been doing plenty of thinking. About things, people, places, new possibilities, new realities, new me. I wonder what she looks like.
So you heading out on vacation?
I was so lost in thought it took me a second to register that he had said something. Huh? Oh, sorry, wasn't paying attention. What'd you say?
I was just asking you what brings you to Canterlot. Vacation or something else?
Nah, just going home, actually. I finally replied. But I have some extended family up here. So, always been kind of a second home. Just spent the last week up here visiting them. Relaxing after the end of a school year. What about you?
Yeah, me too. Just a quick business trip for me. Meet clients, prepare briefs, bury myself in paperwork again.
His expression wilted a bit.
Kinda bummed too. I was hoping to get out and see some of the sights. Never been to Seattle before.
He shrugged a bit and glanced into the aisle, where there'd only been a trickle of people remaining.
But I suspect I'll be coming back in a few weeks for more meetings. Any place you can recommend for a very late dinner?
The Mocha Sunrise Cafe, I answered immediately. Just across the street from the downtown library. Big neon sign wrapped around windows. You can't miss it. Memories of old family vacations sprang to mind, and I began to wonder where the other me went to kick back and relax. I refocused before my thoughts wandered too far and replied, "Good food, great coffee, and Mucka can give you a tour of the city without you ever needing to leave your booth." He tapped the location into his phone and saved it for later.
Awesome! Thanks. I'll be sure to...
He was cut off by the voice of an overhead, cheery flight attendant. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Equestrian Air Flight 42, with non-stop service to Canterlot. The cabin door is now closed, so please..." I took a quick look around while the announcer continued. "Wow, an empty aisle seat? That's a rarity."
No doubt.
He replied before taking a peek forward, as if expecting one last passenger to come rushing through the aisle any second. Seeing none, he glanced my way.
No offense, but I think I'll snag that extra room on the aisle seat,
he said as he scooted over. I shrugged my shoulders. Go for it. Normally I would have taken the aisle seat for myself, so I could stretch out my legs a bit more. But not this time. This time I wanted to be next to the window. I wanted to get a full view of what was outside, even if it was just miles of empty blue sky. A small part of me wondered if I'd see anything differently, knowing what I know. A soft thud came through the plane, and a moment later we were rolling away from the gate. I guess we'll find out soon enough. Now, folks, if you could direct your attention to the cabin crew, they'll demonstrate the safety features of the 700 series aircraft. The flight attendants began their safety briefing, rolling through the motions and demonstration that all of us had seen millions of times before. I sat there watching the attendants demonstrate how to put on an oxygen mask, how to fasten the seat belts, where the life rafts were, and a dozen other safety topics that nobody really paid attention to. That got me thinking, I wonder what it'd be like without those. Heck, what would flying be like without anything? No masks, no belt, no radar, no plane even. Just me in the sky. Nothing holding me up but a pair of wings and a little bit of what Twilight had called Pegasus magic. Even now, it was hard to really wrap my head around something so radical to me. Yet it was commonplace in Twilight's world, and was now part of her own life as well, if her story about becoming a princess of Equestria was real. Gate after gate rolled by outside as we crept closer to the runway. At nearly each one sat another plane, some large, some small, many sporting colours and designs I didn't fully recognise. People and vehicles moved in every direction beneath them, like ground-bound bees buzzing around huge metallic nests. It was amazing to watch the amount of work and preparation that went into getting these 100-ton birds ready to go.
They all sort of blend together after a while, I think.
I glanced back to my neighbour who was looking past me out the window with seeming disinterest. "Yeah, only so many ways to make them, after all," I replied softly, one eye still focused on the scene outside, "but I tend to think they're still unique in some ways."
Really? How so?
For a moment, the picture outside changed. Instead of planes, there was rows after rows of huge winged horses in every size and colour imaginable. Some had small, thin wings, others had huge wings, swept up and back. Some even had curved tips on the end. I saw them pawing at the ground with their hooves, flexing muscles in preparation for flight. Flaps and rudders became feathers and tails, swishing and swaying back and forth. Out of the corner of my eye, I spotted a multicoloured plane, done up in shades of red, blue and yellow. Without even thinking about it, I grabbed the tuft of my hair and looked down at it, then looked back up at the plane. I tried to imagine it as a multicoloured horse. The one Twilight had said looked just like me. Then the plane came fully into view and saw the airliner's name printed on the side with big white letters. Yeah, no way I could be some discount plane. I'm way cooler than that for sure. Well, think about it this way, I finally replied before pausing after his question became awkward. We all think of our cars as having personalities. Heck, one of my friends even called her car Cupcake. But yeah, we kinda give them a bit of a personality, right? He scratched his chin for a second.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Or we at least think of it being especially ours, even if there are others like it on the road.
Exactly, I replied. Even if we see one that looks the same from a distance, it's still unique because we just know it's unique. It's our car, through and through. I pointed out the window to another plane like ours, only this one sported a bright, multi-hued orange paint job. See that one? That's pretty much the same as the one we're on now. But it has its own number, own colours, just like we have names and skin colours. And maybe that one's stripes are brighter than this one, or maybe it can fly just a bit harder, turn a bit sharper than the others. I imagined that plane as another one of those horses, only taller and more muscular, every part of it screaming, "I'm faster."
Huh. Never thought of it that way.
He mused, but quickly smiled nevertheless.
I take it you're a bit of a plane buff.
Me? Nah, not really. At least I never used to be. Kinda just picked it up recently, actually. A friend of mine is a flyer, though, and she got me interested. He smiled and nodded.
Ah, okay, cool. My dad had a small Cessna for a long time. He'd occasionally take me along on a short flight. At least, until he sold it a few years ago, anyway. Just too expensive to keep up anymore.
I noticed the terminal roll out of sight and past my window, leaving nothing but empty fields and rows of blinking lights along the edge of the pavement. The runway wasn't far now.
Your friend,
He continued.
what type of plane does she fly?
I'm not sure, really. She just got her pilot's license a few weeks ago. A bleach-white lie, to be sure. But Principal Celestia had already gone to great lengths to keep the real story of what happened between all of us and the appearances of Magical Portal from the press, and I wasn't about to blow the lid off yet. He chuckled and waved it off.
Okay. Just curious is all.
A small ding rang out, followed by the pilot's voice. "We are clear for departure. Flight attendants, please take your seats." I watched as the two attendants, who were still up, quickly finished what they were doing and moved towards the front. A few seconds later, the overhead lights faded away, bathing the cabin in a sort of deep blue glow, which had added effect of muffling the din of chatter that had filled the plane moments before. I gave my calves a bit of a stretch, brushed my hair behind my ear, and settled back into the seat. Habit forced me to check my seatbelt, though once again I had to wonder what my counterpart would think of careening through the air without something strapped to her like that. Especially something as uncomfortable as these. The plane made one final right turn, then came to a stop. Since I was seated just behind the wings, I had a great view of the action that went through some of the final adjustments. Like some mechanical jigsaw puzzle that would change on command. The wings stopped moving, and soon the sound of the engines powering up began to fill the cabin. My thoughts drifted for a moment to the tour I had taken at the plane factory just north of the city, and to the little girl who had looked down at one of the nearly finished planes and asked the guide, "How is something so big able to fly?" "Magic," was the guide's first response. He had been joking, of course, but he was more right than he could have imagined. As the engines roared into life and sent us barreling down the runway, I imagined the equestrian me running across a field somewhere, eyes fixed ahead and wings spread as far as they could go. The plane poured on the speed, and I saw her gallop harder still, hooves thundering against the ground, just like tires were now. And then magic. Rotation and liftoff. The air rustled underneath us as the flaps worked to control the air and push us higher. Sort of what Twilight had said her primary and secondary feathers did when she took off. The ground fell away rapidly as we gained altitude, and soon the city below was barely more than a kid's playmat. People had disappeared. Cars and buses were just ants weaving through the grey maze. How could I even fly? A good question, and one I'd have to remember to ask Twilight, assuming she ever came back here. She had promised she would, but hey, I could understand if she swore off travelling through magical portals to alternate dimensions. Besides, I mused as I rubbed my hands together, I don't think she'd care for fingers and toes anyway. She watched silent as we turned to the east and continued to climb, and soon the city vanished completely beneath the cloud deck. Banks of cloud lay above and below us, a few grey ones dotting the infinite blank of white. Internally I had to laugh at myself for wondering if I'd seen any of the cloudimus that both Twilight and later on Sunset had described to us. Sometime later, a sudden light turned on, capturing my attention and drew me away from continuing my sky gazing. I looked back to see my neighbour, just retracting his arm from the reading light switch.
Just gonna do a bit of reading, but if the light's gonna bother you, just say so.
No, it's okay, I replied as I stretched a bit in my seat. Go right ahead.
Cool, thanks.
He nodded and dug into his small bag for a moment before producing what looked like a mystery book of some kind. He propped the book on his leg but stopped and looked back at me.
Silly question, but thinking back to what you said about planes having their own personalities and stuff,
I gave him a curious expression. Yeah, what about it?
I was just wondering. The plane we're on, what would you call it?
I was about to fumble for an answer when the pilot's voice came on to the speaker. Hi folks, just an update from the flight deck. We're still humming along on our cruising altitude, weather is still good, and the tailwind's a bit better than expected today. So we should have you on the ground in Canterlot about, let's call it 10 to 12 minutes ahead of schedule. We should be starting our descent in about 30 minutes. The pause had brought me time to think, and I knew just what to say now. I call this one Pegasus. He seemed surprised by the choice.
Pegasus? Why'd you pick that?
Because somewhere out there in a world I might never see, there's a blue pony blazing through the sky with the wind in her face, and nothing but magic and a pair of wings keeping her there. I looked up to him and smiled. Because sometimes magic really is the right answer. That was Pegasus, written by Grand Morph Pony. I like this one, and it is my first Equestria Girls one, but I like it because what would Rainbow Dash, not knowing what it's like to fly, be thinking when she flies in an airplane? Just a thought. Anywho, I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next week. Stay brony!